The recording is started.
Okay, thank you. Are we ready to go?
We're ready to go, Bill.
So we have regrets from Brian Biddlecombe. But I understand that.
Yes.
I guess so.
Yes.
Is there anyone else missing from the
No.
meeting? No. Okay. Well, welcome to the I guess to the first meeting in I guess since COVID started. Last time we met was just in February, just before when things were quite normal. And we had that meeting back on February 18th. So this is the first meeting that we have had since then. I guess we're all getting used to Zoom and all its intricacies. The first item on business would be to approve the agenda. So the approval of the agenda is item number 1. Are there any late? You move that?
No late items.
No late items?
No.
So could we have a recommendation to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Alison, seconded by Sue Ellen. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 That looks as everyone's in favor. Okay. So we have something like 8, 7, maybe 6 items with a few additional informational items, next meeting, etc. So the last meeting was February the 18th, and I think you all have a copy that Steph sent out of the minutes of that meeting, February 18th, 2020. If you've had a look at those, could we have a recommendation to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
I sent you, it's Allison, Bill. I sent Steph some suggested changes, didn't I?
I have a change to suggest as well.
Okay. Why don't we do them?
Okay.
Oh yeah, I've got final draft too, Allison. Yes, I got yours, Allison. So
I've got to answer this. Just hang on. Yeah, mine was to do with the fire hydrants and firefighting capabilities.
yeah, I made
Okay.
the changes and sent them back.
I reworded what I said, so I don't know if you.
I'll just put mine in here on page 2.
Yeah, go ahead.
Page
Sue
2,
Ellen.
where it says Councillor Sue Ellen Fast provided the Quathat Regional Fire District Fire Smart brochure. That was actually Jen who found that. Thank you, Jen. But what I was suggesting for the minutes, just to make it clear, is to insert the words during the meeting after the words selective logging when it first comes up. It was clarified that the selective logging
Suggested during the meeting.
suggested
What?
during the meeting.
Okay.
Okay,
That-
and those were the same. It was the same area that Allison was taking issue with. So I think it was a bit of a confusing 2 minutes there.
Okay,
I will add yours to what Allison already provided and send it out and see if it makes sense to anybody.
great.
That.
I just
Did
wanted to make sure it wasn't the
sorry
brochure.
about that.
She just said to add, I'll put it in text. It was the same section that you edited, so we'll have to meld them together.
Okay.
Alison, did you have any other
No, that
items
was it.
That was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So if we add that amendment addendum to the meeting minutes, could we call for approval of those minutes? Would someone like to move the recommendation moved by Sue Ellen
As amended.
as amended? Seconded by Alison?
No.
Did I see? Yes? Oh,
Yeah.
and all, sorry, you said yes or no?
I said yes.
Okay, good, thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
That's a positive response. So those minutes are adopted. Okay, item number 3, public comments. Steph, I don't think
We
we
have
would
no
have
one
any
from
at
the
this point.
public.
Okay, so we can move past that item. Now we're on to the action items from the previous minutes meetings. Jen, do you want to speak to that?
Absolutely. So I'm looking at page 7 of the agenda. So store and share natural hazards maps. I recall that as being done. Wondering if anyone can confirm that I did that. Sue Ellen's shaking her head no. Sorry. Okay. Apologies. That's still not done. I'll take care of it this afternoon. Item 2, myself and Councillor Fast to work to include the Fire Smart brochure information provided at the meeting. So Councillor Fast, I guess you can speak to this as well, but I feel like that was done. We met and you've had a chance to review the brochure. I think we also, at this stage, the Fire Smart brochure for coastal communities has been now reviewed by the Fire Smart folks, I guess, if you will, at the province. I know that I think 4 different individuals took the time to thoroughly review that document. So we've been attempting to incorporate all those changes, and I think that it is currently with Sophie again, waiting for sort of final revisions. But I'm happy to send it through to this group again once all of those changes have been incorporated before it's published.
I just had a question. Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm wondering if the 4 individuals that you talk about, are these fire experts or emergency experts? Or are they local Bowen people? Is this a joint brochure? I guess is one of the other questions.
No, we wanted to, sorry, I'm really having to dig back into the depths of my memory. This is not.
Yeah, no, me too.
But we wanted to seek their approval to use FireSmart images and branding in the document. And so I believe it was in those discussions that Sophie initially engaged with the folks at the province. So I think they're from the Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resources, but I can't tell you what their professional designation or qualification is. I'm happy to go
No,
through.
that's fine. I just wanted to be sure that I was understanding. So these are folks with the total expertise and they're part of the Fire Smart program.
You bet, yeah.
I just didn't know who the individuals were. That's great that we're getting that kind of input. Thank you.
It was thorough.
Excuse me, Alison, you have a question? Go ahead. Can't hear you.
Well, I had a little thing that came up in front of my unmute. Can somebody remind me, is this a brochure that we're developing all on our own? And in which case, why are we doing that rather than just using what FireSmart BC provides? Or is this a brochure we are developing with a whole bunch of coastal communities?
I can speak to that. It's something that we're developing all on our own, I suppose. Although we borrowed from that regional district, certainly the idea and definitely some of the materials, and then a lot of it is FireSmart provided information. But there was the desire to have a little bit more of a nuanced approach, recognizing the fact that our risk on the coast is different than other parts of the province, and FireSmart prescribes the same thing for everyone. So it was to try and get to some of those differences and make sure the recommendations that we were providing were appropriate for this ecosystem.
Okay, have we seen a draft of this brochure?
Yeah.
At the
My-
previous meeting.
Because I don't have no recollection whatsoever.
Sorry, has this committee seen a draft? Is what you're asking? I can't recall that you have. I think that the what you would have seen was the Cathett Regional District example,
Yeah, you're right.
but I don't believe that a draft has gone through this committee. Certainly.
I don't think I've seen the final draft. I know I submitted some suggestions and comments and reference links.
I guess I'm just concerned about mixed messages where you get one message from a provincial publication and a different contrary one from a local publication.
And I think staff have been really careful to make sure that they're not contradictory. I'm happy to, like I said, submit or share with this committee a copy of it once I receive it, or Erin and I receive it back from the communications coordinator.
Okay, that would be good. Can we put that as an action item then, please?
Yes, certainly. Jan, I have a question there. If I'm looking at the correct item here, you're going to work with Bruce Blackwell on this?
Yeah, and we've consulted with Bruce.
You have, okay. So then you'd like to see a draft, Alison? Is that what you'd like?
We can't hear you, Alison.
I can't hear her either. So I think she was looking for a draft. So Jen, can you circulate a draft then at
She's
your earliest
on,
convenience?
but nobody can hear her.
I'm unmuted, but the computer gremlins keep putting a Zoom attendee, post attendee link in front of my mute button. So I'm going to I'll stay at live and I won't mute myself then.
Okay, that's probably better.
Yeah.
So let's pick up where we were there. Alison, you would like to see a draft of this
I
as soon as
just thought
possible.
before the thing goes to print that maybe we just let the committee see the draft if they've got any concerns or comments.
I
Sorry,
think
so
that makes sense.
it's a draft of the coastal communities.
What are you calling it, Jen?
I want to get this right because obviously last time there was a bit of confusion about
Call it a coastal fire smart brosure.
coastal.
Or is it a
Okay.
Bowen Fire Smart brochure,
Yeah, sure.
right?
but
Because otherwise, other coastal communities, it'll
that's
just be clearer. That's partly what confused me, Jen.
okay.
Yeah,
Bowen,
I would think we just call it the Bowen Island Fire Smart,
perfect.
whatever, pusher, to be specific. And I guess, Aaron, you probably better have a close look at that again, the draft when it comes out.
Yeah, I've had a good read over the draft already.
Okay, good.
Are we going to print it?
Pardon me?
Is it going to be printed or just posted on the website?
The grant budget included printing.
So we got a grant for doing this.
Correct.
Okay, well, that makes me feel better.
Yeah, good.
Jen gets
I
a
don't
grant
like
for
spending money,
everything.
you know, my Scottish heritage.
Okay,
Looks
Jen,
like I'm next then up for the draft conservation development policy. Do you guys recall receiving that, reading it and digesting all the information in it?
I don't recall ever seeing it,
No.
but that's entirely possible I missed it.
I've seen it more times than I want to.
Okay, so I just in a panic just popped a note to Daniel where it's at, and he says it's sitting on my desk waiting to go to council again. So I'll reshare it,
Thank
you
you,
guys.
because I honestly I couldn't find it.
Okay, sorry. I'm done.
Okay, Jen, planning department, Fire Smart criteria sharing.
Yeah, we've started working on this. I know I was working with one of the planners, particularly on the design guidelines for Snubco. So part of me feels like this is done, and then another part of me feels like it's sort of a constant ongoing process. And this is quite, I'll leave it at that. So ensure that the permit process includes Fire Smart criteria. I'd say that's still in progress.
Can we just say it's a work in progress, and next time we meet, we can, or if you have a draft to share, anything to share in the meantime before the next meeting,
Sure.
you could do that. Otherwise, we'll just carry it forward.
Okay.
Okay.
I think it's more an ongoing work in progress to make sure that when
Yeah.
subdivisions, rezonings, building permits, that the Fire Smart issues are, you know, people are reminded about and they're top of mind and considered in all those approval process.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
So
Go ahead,
I'm just
Sue Ellen.
thank you. My question is, it talks about permit processes. Is that more than reminding people or giving them information? Are we actually suggesting changes to processes or to the land use bylaw? Or is that all waiting on the conservation development kind of? Does anybody know?
Oh, I thought Jen might know. Do you?
I don't have an answer to that
So,
question.
Liam, I've
Liam
got an
does.
answer here.
We did talk about it in brief in one of the recent meetings. I can't remember exactly what the meeting was, but we were talking about the prohibitive nature of requiring some Fire Smart criteria in building permits and from a cost prohibitive perspective. And so trying to be reasonable in the application of Fire Smart criteria when we're talking about permitting.
Okay,
So I think for now, the direction has been, to ensure that especially if we're talking about a redevelopment, right, to ensure that they're aware of the fire smart criteria, but to what degree we're going to require them to adhere to some of the criteria is still up in the air.
Thank you.
And
To
I-
me,
And I think
it's
that-
more than
yeah.
just permitting, though. It's the whole subdivision approval rezoning process, based on the comments that Bruce Blackwell made at the meeting we had with him, the Zoom meeting. We need to think about those things as well. And the reverse of, not necessarily requiring somebody, but not encouraging somebody to do something that's different, that's contrary to fire smart principles.
Right, Allison, I do, recall that conversation with that presentation from Bruce. That was really good. And that's really where we should be focusing some of our attention is on new developments and like some of the road right of way considerations and things like that.
Can I, since this
Sorry,
topic
go
has come
ahead.
up, I just was thinking later, gosh, I wish Bill had had a chance to be part of that conversation with Bruce. And he did a little workshop with council, Bill, just so you know, Bruce
Okay.
Blackwell.
Yep.
And I was thinking later, dang, we should have invited you, maybe Raiden, or others that might be. Next time.
Can we
Next
get
time.
him back again?
And
Eric?
it's too bad none of the planning department was there.
I do have a recording of that meeting that I did share with the manager of the planning department.
Good.
And I did tell council that it wouldn't be shared publicly, but perhaps could seek permission to share the recording with Bill and Raiden who weren't able to be there.
If you can do that, I think that would be beneficial. Sure.
Yeah.
I
Ray,
move-
you wanna-
Make that a clear action item.
I move that the recording of the council workshop with Bruce Blackwell be shared with Bill and Raiden of the Emergency Planning Committee, Executive Committee.
Do a
Is that
seconder.
we need council to approve, Liam?
I don't know that it does need a formal approval, but Jennifer did say that she told council that it wouldn't be shared publicly. So it would probably best to.
Okay, how about we just my motion to say request staff explore the possibility of.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seconder. Allison. Thank you, Liam. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's passed. Is that the action item that would the only action item arising out of this particular item? I think.
Yeah.
Anyone, any other suggestions or information?
I think
If
that
not,
I think that makes sense. Bill, to Liam's point, the efforts on my part thus far have been about removing the encouragement that exists in terms of not building with fire smart materials. So I feel like that part of this action has been completed, and it's something that we were working on for months.
thanks, Jen. Could I ask Aaron, what do you think about this?
Yeah, in what way? Like,
In terms of a requirement, or
I mean, I think-
or anything else?
I just think it would be better to encourage, I suppose, and give everyone all the info, as opposed to making it another hurdle that people have to get through to be able to
Yeah.
build.
I think that's what we were intending. I'm not sure that we
Yeah.
got quite so.
So let's just leave it at that then. It's really an encouragement. It's giving the applicant the information and encourage him to follow in whatever manner they can, but not a mandatory requirement, which I don't think would make any sense at this point.
Maybe it should be reworded to say, work with the planning department to ensure that fire smart criteria are considered in the permitting and development processes.
Are we happy with the word ensure?
Well-
Can anybody do that?
Can I suggest that that doesn't need to be an action item of this committee? It's something that is ongoing. Staff are
So we'll just mark
working
it as.
together on that already.
Let's mark the item complete and in progress.
in
Can we do
on-
that? Sorry, Raiden?
I was just wondering, thinking that the people that need to have that information are like the landscape architects and the architect, because rather than the builder.
I think to try and address that, or start to address that, we built that building in resilience document to be shared with anyone who's seeking a permit. There's copies of it at the building and planning department. I'm not sure how useful that is in COVID, but pre-COVID, there were that document was available for folks, because we had heard that people just weren't aware of the option to build with hardy board, or the suggestion that you shouldn't put wood on your roof, that sort of thing. So we were trying to address that knowledge gap with that information piece, and hopefully by including it as part of the permit, we've started to do that.
So can we just leave this as that Jen will continue to work with the planning department and with Liam insofar as to make sure the awareness is there, but it's not a requirement, but the awareness is there to try to incorporate any of those fire smart principles and materials into the design insofar as possible, and just it's an ongoing item that you will from time to time work with the planning department to keep that warm. Is that acceptable to the committee?
Yeah.
Sorry, Sue Ellen?
Yes, it is. And I also wonder if, Jen, you can check to make sure that resilience brochure, whatever you called it, is on the website as well for people to find, or is it?
Yeah, I just made a note to make sure it hasn't got lost in the shuffle to move everything electronically.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, let's move on to item 5 then. Meet and this is Councillor Morris, Councillor Fast, Jennifer and Aaron.
We haven't
To
done
meet-
that.
Are you planning on doing it, or just carry it forward?
I'm wondering, with the potentially imminent CWRP update, if we should hold off until the new plan is available.
CW,
RP or PP?
I know they changed the name.
Changed it.
Aaron's probably better to speak to this, but my understanding is that the fire department is seeking funding from the province in the October intake, so this month's intake, to have our CWPP updated. They now call it a community wildfire resilience plan instead of a protection plan.
thank you.
Yeah, I can confirm that that's all been done, and we're just waiting to obviously hear back on the grant funding.
Which we won't hear until after an election.
Exactly.
Which isn't far now.
No, but then they've got to count the ballots and sort it all out, and it'll be well into the middle to the end of November.
So the recommendation was actually included just to extract the recommendations and pass them on to the Climate Action Committee. Is that what we're still going to do?
To the climate strategy. Yeah, we can do that anytime.
That should be straightforward. You can
But I
just,
guess what Jen's saying is the recommendations may change once the new plan's updated, so.
I guess it's a question of, do we want to wait for all those things to happen, or do we, with the risk and it being one of the things on our hazard and vulnerability 8 top things, do we want to just go ahead? Because it's unlikely it would change that much.
go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, sorry, Bill, I wasn't properly reading the last part of the action item. I would say there's no harm in sending the current recommendations now. And in fact, we already have them extracted. So it's just a matter of sending an email to the committee.
Yep. So let's just send those on, and if and when it is changed or updated,
So we don't need
we can do
to,
it again.
let them pick the ones that they think are relevant. We don't need to stress any of them for them.
I don't think so. I think they're pretty smart people.
Didn't,
think we
wasn't
just
it
give 'em
already
what-
adopted, the climate strategy?
I think it'll be worked on and updated as new
It's a living
information.
document.
becomes available.
Yeah, so I'll change it for updates then.
Sure. I don't actually remember whether we've got a current adopted climate strategy or whether it's still being worked on. A bunch of things got interrupted with COVID and
Sure.
unless I had notes, boy.
Can we ask staff to check the tracking document after the meeting and let us know if it got adopted
Yeah.
or not?
I thought it was being updated and we were trying to seek some funding from SIA, the Community
yeah.
Energy Association.
Yeah, that's another thing, but I think, yeah,
Sure.
there's two. There's a community energy action and
Community
emissions plan.
energy,
And,
yeah.
and the climate
different
strategy. so I'm
documents,
not
Lee.
sure which.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll just pass on. Sorry.
So my action is to find out the status of the climate strategy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we'll
Action
go
tracking.
to number 5.
Okay. So we're just passing that along what we have right now, and it'll be updated as appropriate. Extracting whatever's relevant, Jen.
Who's sending me the extractions?
I will.
Thank you.
Jennifer is going to do it.
And then I can share that with them next week.
Okay. Any other comments there? No. Okay. Carried over from previous meeting, the actionable items. EPC want the coordinator to work with the fire chief and the clerk to coordinate and update the municipal fire prevention bylaw number 41. Any update on that, or would anybody know?
We haven't been working on that yet. I've now got an administrative assistant in the department working with me. We've got a list of things that's a little bit lower down our list, but it is on the list. So we do want to update that bylaw, but it's not currently on the 2020 list of things to do.
Okay, 2021 then.
2021 for sure, yeah.
Any other comment? No. Okay, number 2, the CAO, Mr. Beck.
Didn't know you had to do that.
This is,
Nice.
I got nothing to do with this one. This is I'll call Dennis up and see if he's done it.
Good
I'm
idea.
sure he didn't because we didn't have Patrick in line then either. So
Yeah,
So
that's right.
this is to make the gate at the top of Bishop's Hill more functional or something like that?
not
or-
necessarily the gate make the road more functional.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've driven up there. That's a bit of a sketchy little piece of road.
I think last time we tried to have that road upgraded. At one point, we looked at it to see if it could be upgraded, and it was Bob was the works director at that time, and I think he came back and said it was very expensive, because that would really.
Houses, the end of the houses now, right, Jen?
Correct.
But
Yeah.
the last bit,
Once you go past the pavement there's some serious potholes. It's
Yeah.
like,
So
Well,
anyway,
sorry, Jen.
Mr. Chair,
yes, ma'am.
I wonder if, I think that council has recently seen something called evacuation route planning. That Jen, I think, has applied for some funding or is starting to work on some kind of project around that. And that might be a good time to revisit this, like whether it's even, whether it's a route that is recommended for evacuation or not. It just seems to me that would fit with that. Do you know?
I think
is that
that
something that you?
I think that's a very good idea. First of all, before we get into checking if it's going to be possible, let's see if it's still on the route that we want it to be, an evacuation route. And then based on what we find, we could go forward with looking at what it would be necessary to upgrade it.
I guess just thinking out loud here, and living down here, the that whole area down here is growing and developing, and we did have a situation last year where the other road was closed for most of the day. And it, similar to the fire that they fought, you know, that they had on Miller Road, where people couldn't get in and out of your end of the island, Bill, because and they had to go through private property to access it. So it's not only an evacuation, it's a maybe being able to get home situation. So
Yeah, I
again,
think that's true. I
it's
mean, we
one
were
of-
very lucky.
one
There
way
was an
in,
alternative.
one way out, and if you don't have the second way in and out, then you're really hoot.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that's okay. Two things: just check where it stands with emergency evacuation route, number one, and number two, let's independently look at how it might need to be upgraded to be used in the case of like a local emergency, let's say, such as we had at Eagle Cliff or Miller Road, where we were basically stuck in for a good part of the day. If we just do that, sorry, go ahead, Jen.
Sorry for interrupting, Bill.
No problem.
I think that this in part came about because of the use Councillor Morse is talking about. There were lots of members of the public that had to use the road that day to get to and from their houses. And I certainly heard informal complaints. I don't know if we heard any formal complaints about just the quality of the road and the difficulty in driving even a four-wheel drive vehicle back and forth. I think that not very much will come in terms of a designation for this road or a particular focus on it in the next stage of evacuation planning. It's already, in my opinion, proved itself as useful as a secondary source of access or egress if needed. So I got the impression as well that we already had an understanding of what the cost estimate was. It was a matter of like digging it up. So I guess all this to say, I don't know what phase 2 of evacuation planning will lend or how it can inform this.
Liam?
Yeah, I've already started drafting an email to Patrick to try to dig out the cost. I imagine it is expensive, but I know Public Works already, they use that access because it's a shortcut to Salal and to their works
Oh,
yard
they're
there.
messing up the road.
That's right. Let's blame them. Now you got to fix it, guys. So no, so I'll ask about that because there's no doubt in my mind that it is always preferable to have 2 access points. So yeah, but you got to be able to use it. So if it's in that state of repair, then
Councillor Fast.
Yeah, I just wanted to flag for the CAO that this issue of opening or closing the Bishop's Hill Road or spending the money to upgrade it has been an issue since we became a municipality and before. And I can see Councillor Morris's head has gone down. And so it's a controversial thing. It's expensive. It was a road that probably should never have been built there, but there it is now, and the properties are there. So it's an ongoing issue, and maybe if there's grant funding or something that we could find, we might actually be able to tackle it with the new approaches of actually having an evacuation plan, so that part isn't one of those things that gets argued about. Possibly there's a way to fix it. I don't know, but just to flag the context.
Raiden?
People that are new to the island, that was the only way we got in and out until the Cowan Point development was built.
Yeah. Raiden?
Yeah, I mean, it's no steeper than half the driveways on Bowen. I really think we should just do it however possible.
Yeah, it's certainly a bit of a shortcut, isn't it, if you're going down to Cowan Point?
Yeah.
No
Well,
question
not
about
just
that.
for that reason, but for emergencies.
No, I understand, but I don't know how you stop people using it otherwise.
I think
Well,
you'd
it's
have the gate
emergency
closed.
access is what the
Okay.
resolution talks about.
Yeah, I think the gate would be closed. But the road would be improved so that it wasn't so difficult to pass in the event of an emergency.
Okay. I like that. So Liam, you will follow through with Patrick and see where we're going at. Okay. The June 11th meeting.
Still working on it. Other things keep coming to the fore.
That's a big one, Alison, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Every time I read through the law or the OCP, I make myself a little note about another section. So it's not totally forgotten.
So it could be like a work in progress.
Yeah. And the design panel is re-looking at the design guidelines, and that's what was one of the major issues.
Okay. Let's just carry that forward then. And if anything comes up, you can report back to us about it. Otherwise, you should just carry it forward as you see, as you're able to.
Yeah.
Another one for the CAO, business continuity at the next managers meeting. I'm not sure which manager. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so Jen brought this up with me a number of times, which is great. And then we actually did secure funding with the help of Steph, who brought forward business continuity planning to the community through the earlier this summer. And we targeted some of the core businesses on the island that were deemed essential services. And you know, the key businesses that we needed to remain functioning through this pandemic, and have been doing business continuity training with them. And we're making it a priority internally here in the municipality as well. And we're hoping to secure a BIM training session just for BIM managers for the different departments. And we want to implement our own continuity plan, which would, you know, be updated annually. And so that's on the go.
Good. Well, that's very important. Any comments? No. Okay.
That's good.
Thank you, Liam. Councillor Morse, PC Hydro, tree clearing, UBCM.
I sent the fellow an email and I actually never heard back, and then COVID hit, and then we had gotten to know a little bit the arborist or the fellow that does the on the ground organizing for hydro, and I think they've got a real budget challenge. Like, we had a tree flagged here that they were supposed to come down and take down, and fortunately for them, it fell down the other day. And fortunately for us, it didn't wipe out the wires. The top part snapped off, but we still got a big branch hanging over the wires. But yeah.
Alison, have you ever talked to John Clark about this?
Oh yeah, we've had communications with John Clark about the other tree we're waiting for them to take down.
Because I understand he's the arborist or
Yeah.
the
I'm
forester.
going to follow up with John.
Yeah, because he's going around marking trees as far as I can.
Yeah.
We had one come up here.
He's marked a couple down this way, and that will take out serious hydro line damages if they fall. But again, it's subject to their budget availability, and so
Yeah.
yeah.
So the essence of this item was to either clear a tree or in some way
Well, no, it was more to
render a
get them
tree.
to work with Public Works, and try and, where they were trimming trees, they could also be helping us with creating less overhangs for the paths and things like that. So, and keeping the area under the lines clear. So it's and because what they're doing doesn't quite match their policy.
Councillor Fast.
Yeah, as I recall this conversation, it's quite a long ways away, so maybe we should just take this one off. Part of the challenge was that BC Hydro has several times changed their ways of clearing or keeping the lines clear. And some places, like when you go past auxiliary hall, fire hall number 2, and you turn right on Bowen Bay Road, on the left-hand side, it's kind of a hedge because of the way they've trimmed it, which seems to be, I think it was deemed might be a fire hazard. I'm not sure. But anyway, there were various things, and I don't remember them quite the way Councillor Morse remembers them. So I propose we take this off and perhaps put it into our community energy, into Jen's hands.
Jen, what do you think?
I'm happy to try and follow up with BC Hydro to.
I mean, I think one of the things we wanted to do was make sure that they had conversations with you and Public Works before they started doing any work, so that, you know, we were getting maximum benefit for their dollar.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the problem was we were trying to solve. I thought it was.
Well, if you look along
wildfire.
Adams Road, they've topped the trees. And now they're bushing because they've topped them, and they're overhanging a path, and you can't walk on the path because the tree branches are sticking out, and they're sticking out into the roadway. So part of that situation would be, it might be better if they took the tree down rather than having 10 feet of growing out into the middle of a path that you want people to be able to ride on their bike on or walk on.
See, part of the challenge too is that as BC Hydro changes their strategies, sometimes members of the public have contacted us because they're upset because BC Hydro has changed their policy to start doing what Allison suggested, which is take out whole trees, and then neighbors are suddenly going, hey, what happened to my neighborhood? So, you know, the idea of taking out whole trees and what's best for meeting our emergency needs, I think that's why I was suggesting that Jen would be the person to talk to, or Aaron, or somebody who is actually involved in, from this committee's perspective, I'm looking at emergency preparedness and response.
So when a live wire lands on a tree and sets the whole island on fire, you're okay.
I was responding, that's why I brought up the point about it has to be something to do with wildfire preparedness. That's why I brought up that idea of the bushiness of the just past Bowen Bay, the Bowen Bay Road cutoff. And I never said I was okay with the island catching on fire. What a statement! My goodness.
I really didn't hear that, Alison. Sorry,
well, I
Steph.
guess my philosophy is that the ground underneath the wires should be clear of flammable items.
Yeah, well, see,
I
this
think
is why I'm suggesting that
Hydro's policy as well. And
sorry,
so,
Councillor Fast.
this is why I was suggesting that we put it in the hands of staff who are concerned with emergency and fire preparedness.
I think that's a
because I'm
good
not
idea.
sure that
Let's take it
us
off this
councillors
agenda.
are the experts. I don't think we are.
No, I agree. I'd like to do that because we all know how difficult it is to work with BC Hydro anyway.
So I'll make a motion. I'd like to move that the EPEC committee request staff to contact BC Hydro about coordinating efforts for emergency preparedness and response.
That's quite good in general.
Yeah.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
So Rayden and Alison seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
passed. I think that's a good approach. Is that the end of it, or have I gone to my last page?
The end.
Oh, good.
Done with the action items.
Okay. That would be new business, 5.1. The EOC review, how did that work during the emergency? Jen, I think that's what that is.
So I certainly don't need to take the 15 minutes allotted in the agenda to present this. As part of your agenda package, you received the after action report that was drafted actually still during our activation and towards the end of it. And I'm pleased to say that most of the recommendations from that after action report have already been actioned and implemented in order to try and help us be as prepared as possible for whatever comes next. So you can obviously read the document for further detail, but overall, I think staff did an incredible job in a very challenging event. I mean, the pandemic's the only hazard of this nature. It's global. It affects everybody. It goes on for a long period of time. So for our very first official EOC activation, I'm really pleased with the performance of the staff you guys have here.
Councillor Fast.
Thank you very much for this report. I think it's great. I have two suggestions. One is that could you put the date on the front cover if it hasn't at some point when it's convenient, just for quick glancing. And secondly, I think it would be good if you put your name in as the author. Like, I think for any document, I think it really helps.
I didn't write it.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Well, who wrote it? Like, I'm just wondering where did it, who says this?
The EOC staff wrote it, so I contributed, but a member of the EOC planning department was spearheading it. And then, as you can see, obviously it incorporates comments from everyone who participated, staff and volunteers alike, participated in the debrief. All
right, I just didn't see, I assumed that you'd written it. So maybe you could make it clear about who wrote it.
Sure.
That would be great. Just, that's my suggestion.
Great.
Otherwise,
Okay.
I really appreciated it. And thank goodness we'd had this done and you were on deck and all that stuff. That's great.
Allison had her hand up.
Yeah,
Alison, sorry. Thank you, Liam.
she's mute again.
Can you?
You're still mute, Allison. Unmute yourself.
Thank you, staff. I don't know how I got muted again. So looking at the report, I noticed a comment under Bowen ENS is looking at a provider change. I probably shouldn't be discussing this in an open meeting, but
Yeah, I can tackle that as part
is
of
that
the
an open meeting conversation? Probably not.
Well, let's take it offline then, and you can discuss it.
Yeah. So
at
I
staff
just
level.
maybe we can just ask staff to give us a quick little email as to what's being considered there.
The company is aware of the fact that we're considering a change, so
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's why we would keep it confidential. I'm also happy to publicly discuss what's being discussed at a regional level. So
I'd be interested in that.
shall we cover that under that section of the agenda?
Yeah.
Rather than.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and then under workload EOC, which is page 21 of the report, evaluate how can sections be supported during high tempo operational periods. I think maybe that's just a typo. How sections can be supported?
EOC sections.
Yeah, so I think you've got a typo there then.
During high tempo operational
Well,
periods.
how can sections be supported or how sections can be supported?
Trying to find that.
Yeah, sorry.
So I think Allison says page
Workload.
21, it's in the middle, workload EOC. Evaluate how can sections be supported. I think just for clarification, how can EOC sections be supported?
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, on the wrong page, I don't even see that.
Page 21, is
Okay,
it?
do you want me to do a share screen of this?
It's not page 21 of the PDF, the whole PDF agenda. It's page 21 of the report.
Or
Right.
page 27 of your PDF agenda.
27 of the
I don't
PDF.
think that's necessary stuff. We're just
Oh.
talking about
No.
wordsmithing.
Okay, and then I guess what do we do with the ones that are flagged for BIM? I mean, like on the previous page, consider a study to determine if transit services provided locally rather than regionally would better serve Bowen Island.
We've been having internal meetings to address all of the action items or all of the actionable recommendations. And I know that Liam can perhaps speak offline to the discussion specific to the transit conversation.
Yeah, so anything that's tagged with BIM is the municipality as a corporation. And so we need to be looking at that. And then we'll look at whether or not that's something that can be actioned within our current operating mandate and our operating budget. And if not, then that would be something that we'd be bringing to council for direction on.
Maybe it's not just action within, you did say mandate, because I think that section, that one specifically needs a discussion at the council level before we embark on that.
Exactly, yeah. No,
Yeah.
and I mean, then that's kind of a, we all already know that the contract for transit services on the island are in question. So, so that,
Not a secret.
Well,
Yeah.
that will come up in 2021.
that's right. And
Yeah.
so,
But that's the
as we,
contract.
as that,
That's
as-
not.
sorry, go ahead.
So go ahead, Alison.
Yeah, so there's a whole, yeah, I mean, it's just a bit of a thing that I think before we embark in, we need to have a council discussion about that.
That's
that
right.
act.
That's right. So, so not everything here identified as BIM would be done at our sole discretion at the management level. We would, some of these items would have to come to council. That hasn't been identified that way as to what would require council.
Okay.
Is Liam, is that something you and Jen will be following up on to try to sort of break this apart and look at the different recommendations and where they're going to be going and who's going to do what? Is that what you were thinking?
That's right. I mean, ultimately, this is a very long list.
Yeah, it is.
And so we are tackling what we can and tracking that as we go. But we
prioritizing.
Yeah, we will need to also identify, well, what's priority items. We do have a tracking document that is showing status of these things too.
So can we just leave that in your good hands, and you and staff will be following through there and then taking the appropriate action items to whatever end you see fit you need to do? Does that make sense?
That works for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Jen, you can particularly keep note of any items in here that you think the EOC particularly might be interested in. And you can keep a close eye on those particular items and work with Liam to make sure that those are attended to appropriately as far as we're concerned.
Absolutely, and we have been.
Of course you have. I know that.
Yeah, she's good at keeping us on task.
You will, of course.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say,
Right.
if I may, that I thought that was a great document, the review.
Oh, it was very comprehensive.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
Excellent.
Yeah, it is. I've just read the recommendations, but not the details. Okay. I think 5.1 is, I don't think we need a recommendation or anything coming out of that. I think we've discussed it and we know where it's heading.
That's right. We'll ideally try and produce one of those after every activation, and I'll continue to share them with this committee for your information.
Okay. And if there are any particular items that you think are very important that are not being, that, let me put it this way, so it is political, so that you think we're not getting the traction that's necessary from an EOC point of view, from this committee's point of view, I would hope you'd let us know if you're having any holdups there, Jen.
Thank you, Chair. Yes.
You know what I mean. Okay, the software, EOC software purchase discussion. I'm not aware of what that's about.
I know I'm tempted to try and ask Councillor Morse to take this one on, but I can't recall what the beginnings of this discussion were. I did, after it was raised at the last meeting or the meeting prior to that, I reached out to one of the companies that provides common operating picture software, and the municipality could expect to pay around $500 a month for this type of software. And I think that's just sort of the base entry price. So it has a lot of capability, and it could certainly be useful and valuable. In addition to the cost of the software, I think it would also be prudent to incorporate the cost of operating it into the budget. We don't just buy the software, we then have to train the staff how to use it and upload templates to it and continue to maintain it over time. So it's not just the $500 a month. So I'm not sure who was a proponent of this. I see the benefit. I would love to have EOC software. I know we would use it, but whether or not that's the best use of our very limited emergency program resources, I can't say. I mean, as you all know, the budget for this program is $1,000 a month. So to spend 500 of it on EOC software isn't feasible. So we'd be looking at asking for an increase in the budget to purchase this. And I've
can I ask you a question, Jen? What is the software for? What's it do?
Yeah.
It helps manage EOC operations. So this particular software that I looked at is what the North Shore uses, North Shore Emergency Management. One application, for example, would be post-earthquake. You can very quickly upload rapid damage assessment information into this. It gives you visual picture of, you know, what's been assessed, what hasn't, the status of facilities. You can track your staff and volunteers with it, so it geolocates them and they can mark in as safe. It's a resource tracking and management and a project management tool that's being used in emergency operations centers. So no, I won't say that, but the province uses software to run their EOC. North Shore Emergency Management uses software. It's becoming more and more common. Vancouver's emergency program has EOC software, etc.
What about other small communities?
I haven't heard of any, but I haven't done robust research, so I can't really comment.
So did I understand? Sorry, Councillor Fass, go ahead.
I think, I don't know if we want to spend more time on this, considering that, again, we're wondering whether we need it and what problem it would be there to solve, considering that the province isn't even offering, maybe how about this, if it comes up that the province is offering grant money to support something, then bring it back to this committee. But otherwise, I think we should move on. I think using half the budget for a piece of software that we're not sure whether we would need, I don't know if we should be discussing that. We've got a few minutes left on the agenda and I've got tons of things to do today.
I'd like to just table that item and not proceed any further with it. I'm not sure what the correct procedure is parliamentary wise, but
No,
it's not worth bothering about at this point.
I think the recommendation would be more along the lines of we would want more information before we would recommend whether it would be useful for us or not. You see, if we want it, we've got to decide now, because the budget timeline is such that we'd have to get our budget request in.
I like the idea of what was suggested there, seeing if the province is going to either recommend or do something or fund it or something. If we can get along without it at this point, and we went right through the current pandemic without it, and Jen's telling me that it's useful, but sometimes in my experience in these programs is that they're nice to have, and as a project manager myself, I've been able to get through lots of projects without getting bogged down in such detail as this might bring forward. So I think if we can do without it.
I'm wondering if we've got the volume of assets that need to be assessed and stuff like that we would use it versus a simple spreadsheet.
Raiden?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I thought you wanted something.
I think my chair squeaked.
Oh, okay. Gotta watch that chair.
Yeah.
If
Liam,
do you have a suggestion?
Well, I think I like taking the slower approach. I mean, I've used EOC software in the past and some previous jobs that I had a long time ago. I think it's critical for organizations that are dealing with significant events with many action items that come out of those events. We're lucky to have had Jen during COVID, who's been very organized and keeping everybody on task quite well. I think in a large scale earthquake, something like that would be pretty handy for sure. I think for the majority of events that we might have, we could probably function with what our current protocols are. So I think it is the kind of software where it's really handy for, or if you're getting called out a lot, like North Shore, they get called out quite often because of all of the folks that get themselves in sticky situations in the backcountry, things like that. And so that doesn't, maybe I haven't been here long enough to notice it, but it doesn't seem to be as big of an issue here on Bowen.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do we leave this?
Let's just move on.
Let's move on. Jen, you just keep an eye on it. If you think you need it at some point, come back to us.
Absolutely. I'll let this committee know if there are opportunities.
How's that? Let's go to the next item. Elected official training discussion.
So this was added at the request of council, I believe, when I presented the emergency management plan, which is included as an information item in this agenda to council. There was a discussion around training for elected officials. So I found some online resources that council members might find useful. I've shared, I believe, one of those. I also contacted the Justice Institute regarding formal elected official training. Again, it's pricey. It's unfortunately expensive. It's certainly not something we could do on an annual basis. I landed on the position that it's probably worth doing at the beginning or early on in each council term so that council members are more familiar with their potential role and more comfortable potentially filling that role. But yeah, and that's about as far as I got. I'll leave it there.
Okay. Any discussion? No. Oh, sorry, Councillor Fast.
Just as an elected official who did go on EOC level 1 training, I think it was an all-day training on the North Shore last year or last term. I found it really useful just to go with a bunch of staff to that session. So that's another alternative for elected officials who might need it. Certainly get a good picture of how the system works.
Okay, can we just take that as Alison?
I just wanted to say, I mean, I think it's maybe something that the Local Government Management Association might pick up, or a session that could be offered at counselor school where all the new counselors are going and they're learning about their role in emergency management at counselor school at the beginning of the term.
And just for this committee's awareness, I've saying that message. I've made that clear to the province when they were seeking feedback on the Emergency Program Act, and other communities did as well, that that this could be something that's done in a more centralized way rather than community by community. So I've tried to give that feedback to the province as well.
Thank you, because there is that Emergency Program Act is still, depending on what happens with the election and that kind of thing, it could still be coming forward sometime this fall. Is that, or is it still fall? Yes.
It is, yeah. Let me think here.
So maybe what our action item out of that would be that we recommend to council that council suggest to the LGMA that a session be offered at counselor school, which isn't the right term, for
Local
newly
Government
elected.
Leadership Academy.
No, at the LGMA.
It's the newly elected
session.
officials.
For the newly elected officials session, that a session be offered on your elected officials' role in emergency management.
Raiden?
How big a session? Because I know from just watching since 2004, watching different elected officials go through, come in, try to wrap their mind around the whole emergency program. It's kind of a lot to take in. You know, it may be a whole day session, would be something that could give them a good foundation, but you know, a 2-hour session is just going to be overwhelming, I think.
Well, it might raise awareness and then get them interested in, and they then could offer a day session course that people might want to take.
Possibly.
Steph, do you have a
Liam?
recommend?
I see Liam.
Liam, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, Allison, it's really tough to get agenda items onto the newly elected official. I was tried for years. But I agree, some recognition would be great. Do we do anything unique for our counselors here on Bowen when
We
they're?
don't.
No. So we could potentially do something unique to Bowen, but also still lobby to LGMA to have a broader provincial wide initiative.
So do we have a resolution or
Well, I had a suggestion.
Steph?
That
What
the
do we got?
committee
Go ahead.
Oh, you want me to repeat what I suggested?
I'm just reading out what you said and I've written it down. I'm just reading it for confirmation.
Why don't you read it for us, please?
The committee recommend that council suggest to the LGMA that a session be offered at the newly elected officials session regarding elected officials' role in emergency management.
Okay, I'll move that.
Okay, seconder.
I'll second.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained, Liam.
All in favor, agreed. Anything else on that? I think that's a good idea that Liam suggested, that he look at something specific to Bowen for new councillors.
Well, we do a
do that.
council order.
You can do that separately.
Yeah.
Is that an action then, looking to a Bowen session?
No, I'd like to leave that with
Okay.
with the administrator.
Okay.
Where are we at?
6.1.
6.1. Jen, do you want to give us an update on your table?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thank you to the fire department for taking over a few of my projects this year. When COVID struck, they took over the FireSmart administration, so the grant activities, as well as the AED program. So thanks, Aaron, for your support. As I mentioned, we talked about the response. The Bowen system, we've had a few challenges with lately that haven't been resolved to our satisfaction. There's also a regional discussion taking place about changing or signing up all the jurisdictions within Metro Vancouver for the same provider, so as to make the user experience more streamlined. And the provider that they're suggesting is also well integrated with the provincial system. So some advantages there in terms of potentially in future being able to tie into other methods of communication. So all this to say, it's something that's still being explored right now, but there's the potential for cost savings there. There's also the need to retrain all of our staff, even if we don't change providers, because their platform is changing. So we're looking at having to re-enroll every resident who's signed up and retrain all the staff, regardless of whether or not we change providers, which is also part of what's creating the impetus to explore other options. So I'll just leave that here for this committee's information. If you have any questions or concerns, I'd be happy to answer those. You can see some of the committee work. Sorry, some of these like bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, etc. aren't accurate. A few of these are meeting quite frequently right now as a result of COVID. We did secure a bunch of monitors. I guess no one's been in council chambers to see those, but there are monitors and a plotter through EOC grant funding, which should also be funding an earthquake exercise in 2021 for EOC staff and stakeholders. I'd just like to highlight the 170 volunteer hours that were logged through emergency support services this year. And those are just the volunteers that take the time to log their hours. I'm sure there were a lot more that were worked. And that's just within the emergency support services program. That doesn't include the NERPs, for example. The NERP coordinator volunteers at least 15 hours a week for the municipality, which is amazing, and has managed to secure at least 70 other volunteers as part of that program in this year. They've also undertaken that kiosk project, which has turned out to be, as these things often do, a lot more work than initially anticipated, both for the volunteers and for staff. So that's taking an inordinate amount of time at the moment. Not a whole lot of public and community outreach this year, although you'll see that there's an article about Shakeout in the paper, or there was an article. In terms of staff training and development, I think there's probably nothing as useful as an actual EOC activation in your own community. So yeah, the staff did a great job, but we're also looking at getting them back into regular EOC training now subsequently. The grant activities were, as Councillor Fast pointed out, I'm going to be submitting another application for the evacuation route funding stream. And the plan there is to further build out the neighborhood evacuation maps. So we're going to add more detail about the, for instance, expected number of parking spaces, more detail about docks and other facilities within those neighborhoods. And then also try and practice or drill or exercise parts of the plans, parts of those plans through that grant funding. So if that's successful, hopefully more activities can be undertaken to prepare us for evacuation. And we should know more in the next couple of weeks. And then you can see on the second page, I just try and provide information on sort of completed projects and projects that are currently underway. So that's just there for your information. If anyone has any questions or concerns or would like any clarification, I'm happy to provide that.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
I'm wondering if you can remind me, thank you for the report. I really enjoyed it. I looked at it and I'm going to refer to it. So this is why I've got this question, which is under completed documents. Can you remind me when council actually adopted the emergency management plan? I see it says 2020, but I couldn't find it in my notes.
Yeah, we had the committee of the whole.
That was back in June or July.
Yeah, just before the summer.
Yeah.
I think it was the last meeting in July.
So it would have been the meeting right after the committee of the whole.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I believe it was just on the consent agenda.
That is one thing, just from a process perspective, Liam. It's really nice when you're reading a report that's a published document that you know when it was published, whether it's a 1-year-old report or something that was 10 years old. And we don't seem to put dates necessarily on the reports that are on the website. I find it really frustrating with the provincial government stuff too.
Just for clarity, the emergency management plan does clearly indicate that it was created in 2020.
I think we added that, but I'm not, it just as sort of an ongoing step for communications department.
Yep.
For everything in the future.
Yeah, I know that's on the communications coordinator's radar as well, because that's been brought up.
That's why I was
Agreed.
asking, I was looking at the front cover and going, when did we adopt this? I see it says 2020 on the cover, but it doesn't say when council adopted it. So that could be, sometimes that's good just to pop in there somewhere. Thank you.
Right.
Well, it also means it's a council adopted document too, so it's very clear. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions or discussion?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Jen. That's a pretty good update there. Appreciate that. Moving on to item 7.1, the 2020 emergency plan. I'm not sure, that's just informational item, I assume.
Yeah.
No action required at this point.
That was the point. Hang on, that was the point where I was suggesting that we could put in, well, I think Councillor Morse was suggesting this too, when council approved it. In there somewhere.
On the document?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Itself.
It's already been, for instance, circulated to other stakeholders, posted to the website, etc. Would I be able to suggest that that's incorporated in the next update or any other plans, or are you
Sure.
suggesting that?
Sure, that's fine. If it's already basically
Okay,
published,
but
that's
for
fine. But if you could let me know when we actually adopted it, because I've been going through my notes and I cannot find it, and I will write it on the cover of mine. Thank you.
So rather than amending the document on the website where it says emergency management plan, all you have to do is put a little brackets underneath the document or underneath the heading that says adopted by council,
Sure.
da, 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 da. So you don't need to amend the document itself.
Great, I can do that.
That's easy. Any other questions or discussion on that item?
No.
The link to the evacuation plan, I'm not sure what that's
For info.
for, just for information. Next meeting to be determined. Jen, are there any mandatory, or do we have to get so many meetings in before the end of a year or something like that? Is there anything
Nope.
required for that?
We're good until next year.
Oh, good. That's good to
Can
know.
I go back to the evacuation plan?
Oh, I found it.
Certainly.
June 22nd, we adopted it. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
You can put it on the website, Jen.
I just wondered, how are we communicating to the general public where they're supposed to go and what they're supposed to do?
And the
Do they-
evacuation plan.
Yeah, the evacuation plan.
That's a question that always comes up, isn't it? For sure.
Are we just expecting them to go to the website now and look it up if they're interested, and we'll communicate to them when the actual event ever happens?
Well, I
Yeah.
was wondering sorry, Jen, I was wondering as I was reading through some of that document, if there's any sort of a précis or a shortened version that could be made more public that people would actually read, and get to some of the points that Councillor Morris was talking about there. Because that's a question that always comes up here in our neighbourhood. What am I going to do? Where do I go? What do I do? And I see Councillor Fass would like to say something.
I'm just holding up the Bowen Island Emergency Guide. So there's a bunch of materials that are related to how to be prepared for emergencies on Bowen Island, and during an emergency, and how to prepare, help us find you. So this went out to every mailbox, I think last year, was it, Jen?
And it was handed out at various meetings too.
First edition, spring 2019.
Excuse me?
Liam
ahead,
had his
Rain.
hand up and so does Raiden.
Okay, who was first?
Liam.
Liam.
Bill, I think your point is well taken. It is a comprehensive document that's hard for the general public to digest. And so, one idea could be that we could do area specific one pagers because it's also, do the people in Hood Point really care how Allison gets out? I don't know. Maybe
I don't
they
They
think
do.
so.
probably don't want me to get out, yeah.
They might just keep her in.
I
didn't
just
say
said that for being cheeky.
I'm just gonna go
It's
down to the
okay.
water with my blanket. I'm not trying to go out through my trees.
Right, there you go. So, but I think it is a point well taken, and I think that is a next step for us, is to create something that's a little more handy for the different areas of the island.
We could certainly use that in our neighbourhood. Raiden?
And I think that's what the kiosks are for in the NERP plan. It's an information local to every community. It's their bulletin board kind of thing for the people that aren't online and reading the brochures that they get in the mail. They can walk up to their local kiosk when it gets built, and that's where information like that, I believe, is going to be written.
Yeah, that's absolutely one place. The NERPs are also, through their public outreach, sharing information about the evacuation plan. I think some of our committee members have been recruited for those activities. But just to pick up on what Liam's saying, I understand what you're saying, and I think that we can incorporate that public education component into our phase 2 activities. Even if we don't receive grant funding, there's low cost options for getting this information into the hands of the public. So I'll do some more thinking on what the best way of doing that might be.
You're going to need a one-pager for the bulletin boards for the neighborhood kiosks. So maybe that's. And my other question has to do with, is there going to be outreach to the property owners where you've got private property docks as possible evacuation points?
Yeah.
Sorry, Jen, could you amplify?
Yeah.
This question will come up in 2 weeks' time at our AGM at Hood Point. I'm quite sure.
At this stage, the private property that's been identified, there were attempts made to contact those landowners, and some successful. So were additional ones to be added, yeah, we would certainly try and let people know about that.
And I think we know about it anyway at Hood Point here, because you made us well aware at our meeting last year. That little blurb, I'll call it, that would be very useful, because we can put it on our community website. We can also make it known and communicate it through our various meetings we have quarterly at the association. So we can, with information like that, we can get it out to our members, and like 200 and what have we got, 70, 100 households, for example.
Okay.
So it'd be very useful.
I can develop something that's applicable to all of the island.
Yep.
That tries to meet these goals quite quickly, so that you have something in the interim, and then look at a more robust public education campaign as part of our phase 2 activities.
Excellent, thank you.
I think those very specific questions about where do I go are not, they're very localized.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you almost need a general, and then for your area, here's where you go.
Yeah.
At the
Yep.
bottom.
Agreed. I think that's what you're planning, Jen.
Yeah.
Okay. Next meeting.
To be determined.
Can we just, at the call of the secretary? But I guess between Jen and Steph, you'll let us know when to have one.
Yeah.
It would be what would it normally be, 3-4 months time or something like that under normal circumstances? Is that what people are thinking? Is that
There's usually
regular?
some triggers, Jen, don't you have stuff you've made that you want to share and things you
Yeah.
need? We need to sign off on something here, don't we? Didn't we need to?
Well, we were just going to share it.
Yep. Anyway, we'll leave it to the.
No, sorry. Oh, right.
I mean, if there's a bunch of concerns raised, then we might have to have a meeting, but if there isn't.
Is there no recommendation, Jen, that you wanted?
No.
No, we said, all right. Let's move on then to the adjournment. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Fast, seconded by Councillor Morrison. All in favour? Aye. Thank you very
Bye,
much,
everybody.
everyone. And
Bye, everybody.
have a good fall.
Bye.
Talk to you
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you.